And welcome to Creator Weekly Live. I'm Peggy Kay, and today there are some tips for YouTube creators. There's a whole discussion about how Automatic, Tumblr, and WordPress use your data, some updates for social media, and more. Welcome. Thank you for joining me live today. I see over in the chat, Craig and Jolyn. It's great to see you here. I'd love to know what you think about this week's updates. All right, so to get started, the first thing I wanted to mention is a really important video from the Creator Insider YouTube channel. If you are a YouTube creator, pull that up. This is an interview with Todd, who is the algorithm on Twitter. This is really a dive into common questions about how the YouTube algorithm works. Let's see if I can join more like this. And I'm just deciding which look to have. All right. So what this interview is about is common myths about how the YouTube algorithm works. If you're creating videos on YouTube or live streams, this is really, really worth watching. So that's your first job. And, you know, even though I read all about it, watch the videos, I always learn something new when we have information like this straight from the person who's actually working on the algorithm. So watch that. Okay, so the big story this week, first of all, was broken by 404 Media, and it said Tumblr and WordPress to sell users' data to train AI tools. Now, this is, of course, big news. AI is everywhere. And specifically, it said that Automatic, the parent company of WordPress and Tumblr, is going to sell public data to Midjourney and OpenAI to train their AIs. And this caused some outrage. I think that's not particularly surprising because it's a hot topic that companies are taking content created by regular users and then profiting on that content. So what happened? Automatic came back, and the only information that Automatic is providing is that they are protecting user choice. So they don't really address the selling of data at all. What they say is that they have settings at WordPress.com and in Tumblr that let you set it so that your blogs, public information, posts and comments are not used for training AI. So if you take a quick look at the settings, if you have a Tumblr blog, you'll see that there are settings there. It also discloses that if you set the third-party sharing setting to basically prevent third-party sharing is the setting you want to look for. You go and turn that off, and if you have the settings set so that your blog is not indexed by search engines, it's automatically turned off, that it's I'm getting myself all in a tangle. All right, let me start again. If you turn off sharing with search engines and so forth, it's also set to prevent third-party sharing. And, on Tumblr, there's a lot of social features. And so they say that they will not share posts and reblogs from deleted blogs, password protected blogs, explicit blogs, suspended blogs, your private posts, drafts, messages, subscriber only posts, or explicit posts. So even if you have third-party sharing turned on, those kinds of posts are not shared. Similarly, if you are using WordPress.com, and I seem to have not pulled up that page. All right. So there are privacy settings for WordPress.com. Again, you can enable the option to prevent third-party sharing if you don't want your blog to be used for training AI. So all of this is good, of course. I mean, it's good that there's a setting that lets you turn that off, but I think there's some general frustration that Automatic has not been really upfront with what they are doing with your data. And as Automatic points out, there's no law that exists that requires crawlers to follow the preferences. This could change soon, but regardless of geographic location, they want to provide tools that grant as much control as possible. Since respectable companies follow these settings, they're the best method to enforce how content is crawled on the web. And then they say, oh yeah, we're also working directly with select AI companies as long as their plans align with what our community cares about: attribution, opt-outs, and control. So in a way, that's good news. Craig says, don't put stuff on the internet that you don't want shared. I think, for me personally, this goes beyond whether it's shared. Like, for example, for my blog, I think it's great that search engines index it. It's great that people share it. I think it's not so great if a company is selling what I write to train an AI that will then be a commercial product used to replace people who write things. That is my own personal feeling about this. The AI companies don't really care about copyrights. They don't really care about whether people are being impersonated, it seems. So that's my bad feeling about this. And so this has got some criticism for Automatic. And this affects, again, Tumblr and blogs on WordPress.com, so blogs that they are hosting. But the other thing I didn't know that 404 Media also reported on this week is that all this time, Automatic has had what they call a fire hose of data that they've been selling to companies all along. Now, this has not specifically been for AI training. They've been doing this. It's done for marketing purposes, research, all kinds of things like that. And just last fall, though, they expanded what that data could be used for to include AI training. You can see this is the information about the WordPress.com fire hose. And they did point out that They are no longer accepting new customers for Firehose. They are winding down this service, so it's going to be ended. But if a company subscribed to the Firehose, they could get posts, public posts from WordPress.com and from any WordPress site that had Jetpack installed. Now, Jetpack is a plugin that has a whole bunch of tools. It's installed in a huge number of self-hosted WordPress sites. So if you're using WordPress for your own site, not hosted by WordPress.com, if you had Jetpack installed, there's a data feed for that they were selling. And there's also, they were selling engagements and so forth. So this is kind of disturbing to me because I don't think this was ever that clear that Automatic was selling this information. And I will just note really quickly that when all this discussion broke, Brandon Kraft, who is the director of product engineering for the group that includes Jetpack, had to make a special statement to say, hey, this new AI data handling, selling public information for AI training does not include Jetpack. So previously they were selling data that included sites that had Jetpack installed. This new deal that they have is not sharing that data. So if you use WordPress or Tumblr, this is something to be aware of. Check your settings. It's kind of the Wild West out there, but as a creator, what can you do? If you want to share content publicly, it's probably going to be scraped by one of these companies and used to sell things. So that's the big story this week. There's a bunch of other updates. Craig says, Microsoft Forum contributors were scolded for using AI-generated answers. Yeah, I can imagine that. I've seen AI-generated answers in other help communities, and they are usually really bad. The problem is that the generative AI tools we have now hallucinate things. Often it includes irrelevant information or completely wrong information. I've seen AI-generated answers that give step-by-step instructions for settings that don't actually exist. So that is not surprising to me at all. And I think going forward, this is really a kind of contentious thing. Should people be allowed to use AI to generate text content? And I think, it can help you write a draft, but right now it's not at the point where it can substitute for a person actually writing something, a person who is knowledgeable, who can see where the incorrect information is. So that's the deal. I have just a couple things. And of course, I have so many tabs open, I can't find the correct one. All right. So right now, I just wanted to promote a couple little things. There is a blog post by one of my fellow blogger product experts that explains how to use the blog post gadget for a blogger blog layout to make a menu. It's a really useful tutorial, so I recommend looking at that if you have a blogger blog. As always, all the links to what I'm talking about today are in my newsletter that goes out on Saturdays. There's a link to subscribe in the description or on my weekly blog post. So if you'd like more information and to try these things that I'm talking about, check that out. there is a really neat update for Google Docs. And this is something I just got this update, so I haven't haven't tried it myself. But if you use Google Docs on an Android device, that's I think both phones and tablets, there is a new option to handwrite annotations. This is really great. So instead of having to use the comment option, what you do is select the option to write a comment, and then you can use a stylus or your finger to circle things, jot a note, and so forth. You can't do this on desktop, but people on desktop can see the annotations. So this is great if you are collaborating and you want to write a comment about something in a document that you're collaborating on. This is a neat way to add a comment. And I think this is rolling out right now. So if you don't have it yet, you should have it soon. I also wanted to give a quick plug. As some of you know, I'm with a couple of other folks on a site called On eBoard. We have a new tutorial about how to create icons with text prompts in Google Gemini. This is using the free version of Gemini at gemini.google.com, and there's some great tips for how to do that. Again, check the description for links if you're interested. Now I'm going to move on really quickly to some updates that are for social media. And social media is getting more and more scattered these days. So bear with me while I just mention a few neat new things. On Facebook, on Facebook, they are expanding what they call their performance bonus program for creators to earn money. It's removing a lot of the limits in terms of how much you can earn each month and which platforms you can use. You can now monetize posts, videos, live streams, and reels. So probably a lot of you aren't using this. This is invite only at the moment, but it's expanding, and so there should be more options for creators. That seems to be the way that it's going. Over on Instagram, they have updated their security settings. First of all, there's more warnings if they detect there's a post or a link that could be a scam. There's also a security checkup feature. So if you use Instagram, you can run a security checkup to make sure your account is secure. And the next feature is something over on X, Twitter. Social Media Today is reporting X will soon show your pinned posts to all your followers in the app. This sounds sort of like a crazy feature where if you pin a post, supposedly, the algorithm will then make sure that anyone who follows you should see it in your feed, in their feed. So a big complaint right now is that people are posting things on X, and because of the algorithmic feed, people who follow them aren't even seeing those posts. So this is supposed to kind of counteract those criticisms. Elon Musk says a change is coming. I assume that means it hasn't actually happened yet, but every 48 hours you can pin a post, and that post will then be shown to all your followers. It sounds good. It's not clear it's sustainable. And in the article in Social Media Today, notes a few things. First of all, if you don't pay for X, the reach of your posts has been decreased. This new feature is for everyone, apparently. So that can kind of counterbalance that, maybe. But as it points out, the risk for X here is that too many people could choose to pin posts on any given day. And if it has to ensure that all of the followers, if each of those profiles gets shown all of the posts, again, that's a lot of competition for space in the main feed. And that actually loses a level of quality control, since it's not actually just recommended things. It's not necessarily things that you are interested in. It's, everything that was pinned. So it could actually degrade the quality of the For You feed if they implement this and a lot of people start pinning their posts. We'll see if it actually happens. Social Media Today says, if I had to guess, I would predict creator backlash about 2 weeks after this is rolled out, and then X will roll it back. So maybe this will work, maybe not, but keep it in mind if you post on X that this is something that may be coming. If you want people to see what you post, pin your tweets, pin your posts. And then quickly, if you are over on Bluesky, and I know some of you are, if you're over on Bluesky, there's a new app version that supports hashtags. Hashtags are always fun, and that helps you find new content. You can also mute words if you don't want to see them. And there's better mobile sharing. So Bluesky is getting some new features, and the other upstart Twitter-like platform, and not really upstart since it's owned by Meta, but Threads, has been testing and finally rolled out bookmarking. This to me is a huge, huge feature. I use bookmarking on X and other platforms all the time. So Threads finally has bookmarking posts. You can then go into your Threads account and see the whole list of threads that you've saved. I think that this was really an important tool, not only for sort of power users, but also for regular users who might see something interesting and not really necessarily want to jump into the conversation right away. You can save it for later. So those are the big social media updates for this week. I just want to make sure that I've covered everything. Now, there's 2 more things I want you to be aware of. One is that there is a new site called Mosaic. What is Mosaic? They call themselves the IMDb for everyone. What that means in practice is that this is supposed to be a site that gives credits for people who work on various forms of content but aren't front and center. So we're talking about editors and photographers and all the people who do things in the background. And this is a way to give credit for specific projects. So they have an example for someone who's a freelancer, and they can highlight freelance projects that they've worked on. And the big thing that they're talking about here is this is different than just posting on your social media, because what you do is you create what they call a block, and the block is for a particular project, and you tag the organization you did the work for the block. This is then sent to the organization for authentication. So only people associated with the domain of the organization can authenticate this block on your profile. And the idea is that unlike social media, where people can just post whatever they feel like, people can go to your profile on Mosaic and see, here's all the projects Peggy worked on, and they've all been authenticated by the people who the projects were done for. So this should be a reliable source of information about people who are working on various creative projects. I don't think they limit it to video and movies. It's also for writing. You can say you were a journalist and so forth. I think this is a really interesting thing to do in this day and age, especially we're talking about AI-generated content, and people are more interested in making sure that content is human created, or at least has human fingers on it. And so a site like Mosaic could be used to show an online resume of what it is you've been working on. I just want to say hi to everyone in the chat. Hi, Bridget and Craig and Joan. Thank you for joining the chat today. It's good to see you here. And I am just going to leave you today with something to try. If you have an Android device, you can use YouTube Create to create videos. It's a full-fledged video editor. It is open and available in, I think, 14 new locations this week. Unfortunately, it's not every country yet, but if you are in a country where YouTube Create is available, you should definitely give it a try. So right now, it's a miscellaneous group of countries: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, Finland, France, Germany, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Ireland, Netherlands, New Zealand, Singapore, South Korea, Spain, Taiwan, Thailand, Turkey, United Kingdom, and the United States. And if you are interested, I actually created a tutorial when this launched originally last fall. You can find that on my channel. And I'll put a link in the description. So those are this week's updates. I think it's interesting times right now. I am not sure how to feel about all the AI training. I think AI tools can be really useful. I'm not necessarily that keen with having content I created used for training the tools that then I have to pay for. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you for joining me this week. I will see you next Sunday, same time, same place. Have a great rest of your Sunday and week. Thank you for joining me.